A sense that something is off accompanies an emptiness. At first, the feeling seemed tied to a sister's death, but it now reaches further than that and can only be called a void. Superhero films feature extraordinary people doing extraordinary things, and that much is accepted. What feels bold here is the choice to probe those characters' inner lives and emotions. The idea of taking orders and repeating the same tasks forever is questioned, and then firmly rejected. The film revolves around a search for identity, who to become, and whether heroism has truly been earned. There was a desire to give the opening more weight, surprise, and higher stakes. That led the production to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and the rooftop of Merdeka 118, a 2,227-foot tower and the second tallest building on Earth, where Florence Pugh's character, Yelena, was placed at the edge. Preparations stretched across months and involved the Malaysian government and a local production services crew. Over the same span, the stunt team designed and rehearsed the rooftop rig. Cheers and laughter break out, then a countdown ends with clearance. Before Malaysia, stunt personnel had practiced jumps from bridges in Idaho. At Merdeka 118, work continues with two base jumpers, Katie Hansen and Pat Walker, ahead of a real base jump from the second tallest building in the world. A rehearsal jump is scheduled before filming starts. Sunrise arrives, excitement is shared, and the morning is called beautiful. Earlier rehearsals are recalled before the countdown to action begins. Renowned base jumper Katie Hansen ranks among the best in the world, and her multiple platform runs are called incredible. Once the countdown begins, she shifts into a focused, instinctive state built on acting and feeling instead of thinking. The rush of air provides speed and control, creating a magical zone where flying, not falling, is what she experiences. Accurately reading the height is hard because there are so few surrounding reference points. Much of the planning, therefore, centered on shots and drone angles that could communicate the true scale to viewers. 4 ground cameras and 2 drones captured the jump in profile from different altitudes, along with a helmet camera worn during the leap itself. A perfectly executed jump from a 2,000-foot building is not something anyone treats as ordinary. The day was set to begin early, around 6 o'clock a.m. before sunrise, with rehearsal on the building and a techno crane shot once the morning light turned right. There is also a clear love of heights, including jumping off cliffs into water, rock climbing, and hiking high mountains. Reading the script's first page sparked excitement about the sequence. Scripts often contain elements that seem unlikely ever to be approved. Thanks are directed to Jake for keeping the possibility alive. Disney's Health and Safety Department initially said no, which is understandable given the risk involved. Faith in the idea and a strong wish to do it drove the appeal to Lou and Kevin, and then to the studio's health and safety team. Trust in rigging supervisor Heidi and her crew runs so deep that it reaches the level of putting one's life in her hands. An exceptional stunt team built the rig in pursuit of something unlike anything attempted before. Called a descender rig, it allows controlled descent from the second tallest building in the world through lines running along the back. The system was integrated directly into the building's structure to maximize safety. A countdown then leads to the start of the jump. That morning, 2 stunt teams checked every bolt on the rig. The size and seriousness of the crew are striking, and so is the genuine excitement about getting to make the jump, which feels like an amazing gift. Several practice runs dealt only with standing up before the real attempt, because rising without falling was the hardest part. Once falling became possible, the feeling flipped into a desperate urge to drop, fueled by anticipation of being caught, which contrasted with the greater fear of standing still and hoping not to fall. The whole experience felt amazing. There is a stretch of stillness during the checks and final preparation, and then the moment to perform arrives. An unusual amount of pressure and power is held in a single word: action. Throughout the take, toes and fingers feel vividly alive. Cheers from the crew accompany a goodbye to the 120th floor, or whichever floor had been reached. A personal bucket list item is marked complete. The building jump was filmed in the morning. That afternoon, the production moved to another street, where an entire building floor was blown up. In Old Market Square, Kuala Lumpur, the production transformed an entire storefront facade and dressed the surrounding area as a market for a departure scene that triggers an explosion. The aim was to capture Kuala Lumpur's textures and its mix of cultures and history. The Blast building has a slightly modern design, set against facades with a more colonial look, while the signage and shops were shaped to reflect the city's cultural history and diversity. Finishing principal photography this way feels appropriate because the shoot ends with the same scene that opens the film. After blowing up a building that day, the obvious question is what could possibly come next. The sequence plays as a continuous shot, whose effect depends entirely on a disaffected reaction to the explosion while everyone else runs. Pulling that off requires a central performer with real presence, as well as strong special effects work and the effort of the whole crew. It is recognized as the kind of day unlikely to recur in either career. By comparison, one part of the work feels easy. Performing in the actual space that matches the character's world adds an authenticity that cannot quite be named, strips away the sense of acting, and allows complete immersion in the world the audience will eventually see. Gratitude closes the reflection with the feeling that it was the best way to finish. The take begins with a countdown and a brief burst of physical effort on set. Someone asks what else should be covered, only to hear that the question was missed and needs to be repeated. This project traces back to the period when development of the previous Black Widow film was underway. An upward glance caught by the camera is judged to look great, drawing cheers and laughter from the set, along with the excited realization that a movie is being made. The earlier Black Widow film had started introducing anti-heroes rather than classic figures in the mold of prototypical characters like Tony Stark or Captain America. That opened the door to a new story and a new team moving through redemption and self-discovery. On screen, a new assignment is presented as a request for Red Guardian's help, but he refuses and announces that he is quitting. From that perspective, Yelena emerged as the ideal figure to carry the team's point of view. Reading the early script pages brought real surprise at the direction of Yelena's arc. She appears emotionally numb, unable to feel anything, and no longer wanting to be present at all. One line conveys a life of simply clocking a job in and clocking it out without deeper engagement. In this state, Yelena has lost interest in life, people, and the qualities that made her endearing during the events of Black Widow. There is even the suggestion that it may be time for her to go down the same path Yelena once took, yet it is Alexei who ultimately pulls her back from that emotional void and restores a sense of hope. A memory of happier times is raised, followed by an offer to make something. Their relationship functions as the film's true emotional core because Yelena is looking for a kind of fatherly guidance that is unavailable at first but finally offered by the end. The scene between them carries especially strong emotional weight. Disbelief at ever having been wanted is met with the answer that the feeling went both ways and is now understood. Then comes an admission of lateness paired with reassurance that being present is what matters now. Two struggles are operating at once, a battle with self-image and narcissism, and the difficulty of processing Natasha's death. A term of endearment is shut down immediately, along with the reminder that there had been no contact or sighting for a full year. Reaching out is simply beyond this character, so the response becomes withdrawal and disappearance, all tied to uncertainty about being a father figure. Someone's name is shouted, and the reflection continues with that character's inability to understand what loving someone is supposed to look like. Doubt remains over whether that knowledge exists at all. As the story moves forward, the need to show up for her can no longer be ignored. An announcement to the assembled group introduces what are described as the New Avengers. Within the Marvel Universe, this is a new team made up of characters who do not see themselves as central figures on the stage of heroism. These characters view themselves as broken people trying to find their way, and the casting process sought performers who could embody that quality. A line acknowledges having once been in the same position, then warns that running away does not make the underlying issue disappear. Being able to play that duality was especially enjoyable. It marks this character as someone who has come a long way, yet still carries the weight of an entire life's experience, never becoming a completely different person. One line says that another figure gave people something to believe in, while this one offers something to aspire to. Those traits, both good and bad, never leave the character and give the performance its particular flavor. A resemblance between this group and others is noted and met with enthusiastic agreement. Each member of the group could tip either way, running from fear, from the self, and from unresolved pain and accumulated guilt tied to terrible acts committed out in the world. A warning follows that such guilt eventually catches up, and by the time it does, it is too late. The choice is put plainly: confront the issue now or live with it indefinitely. Direction is then given for a physical move that starts by grabbing something first. What interested them was beginning with one decorated character in disgrace, a point the scene affirms when he denies doing anything wrong and the surrounding crowd reacts in shock. The camera is told to hold, then roll, as a take number is called. This character still sees himself as helpful and wants to clear a tarnished reputation so he can reclaim a true sense of self. He insists he is a decorated combat veteran with a loving family, dismisses the others as cheap mercenaries, and notes that they were clearly sent to bring him in, which gets shared laughter and the comment that the joke landed well. At the center of this person is a refusal to face what he actually did, or what it took to arrive at the current position, and that denial drives the character even through the strained physical effort. His arc continues an ongoing search for a place in the world, along with the question of whether true heroism will ever be achieved. Another character wrestles with intense loneliness and has no family at all, unlike Yelena, who has a father figure in this story, or the figure who spends much of the film talking about a loving wife and children. A line laments having no one. Next comes the account of a life spent entirely in laboratories and connected to machines, held inside a physical cage to prevent bodily disintegration, with an apology offered for the circumstance. The response mocks the impulse to lean into such a sorrowful backstory. Running beneath all of this is a shared desire to belong, to be part of something, and not to remain isolated. Making the film required genuine access to that pain and trauma because it forms the story's emotional battleground and lets every character, and therefore the audience, connect and bond through it. Cheers from the group answer that thought. The final reflection frames this project as a different route toward heroism and teamwork, one grounded in emotional resonance around connection and togetherness. The hope is that it works on several levels at once, delivering fun and comedy while also leaving audiences with unexpected things to think about beyond what they normally expect of a superhero film. A quick greeting leads into a halting introduction as Bob. The name comes back first with surprise and then in a flat repetition. Over that, a voice claims that people think they know this person because they only see the public image labeled Bob and pity it, while insisting that only one figure understands the boundless potential hidden underneath. Learning about the Sentry character happened only after someone else brought it up, and extensive research followed before the project began. That work turned out to be deeply rewarding, increasing admiration as more was uncovered, even as a lingering sense remained that something troubling had happened or was caused. The writing for the character earns high praise, along with the admission that it was hard to predict where the arc would go. Filling the narrative gaps demanded real effort, but the result is viewed as masterful. From a production standpoint, the emphasis falls on finding a story moment that matters. Putting on a golden suit does not make the scene purely about action, and the expectation of a strong emotional response on set brings laughter from the crew. Playing the role is especially demanding because it means portraying three distinct characters at once. What helped was a clear structural plan for dividing the character in a logical way, reinforced by weekly planning calls to map the beats and decide which moments belong to each of the three personas. A plea is made not to harm someone, and the character is identified as heroic. His introduction works well because it arrives right after a large ensemble battle sequence, when an unfamiliar figure suddenly appears and heightens the tension. Early in the film, uncertainty dominates over whether this new arrival belongs among the others or might help in any way. A brief exchange about carrying a weapon illustrates that doubt before it's quickly dismissed. One recurring pattern in the backstory is that every attempt to help makes matters worse. Then, a call for attention cuts in, followed by gunfire and heavy breathing. Costume design approached the look less from a genuine heroic viewpoint than from a branding intention, aimed at creating a highly marketable superhero image. The gold and blue color scheme is considered a success. Although the gold comes from the source material, it was also seen as risky because it could easily read as a cheap costume. Extensive testing led to fabric printed in a way that breaks up reflections and adds visual interest, since gold on set can both absorb and reflect light unpredictably. Putting on the suit for the first time feels thrilling and unsettling at once, marking the realization of truly belonging to this fictional world and bringing real enjoyment during filming. After footage was reviewed, the physical choices were adjusted because intended movements did not always read clearly on camera. There is also a dangerous sense of invincibility in the character, something that would be hazardous to an ordinary bystander. Here, the character is cast as an experiment that went wrong, or perhaps accidentally right, and unknowingly became the most powerful hero. A direct address then assigns a first mission to eliminate a group of criminals. The creator treats the hero as personal property and feels entitled to control him, which prompts resistance. A short exchange questions why killing is necessary when no real threat exists, and is answered with an insistence on obedience. Power means nothing if the person holding it has no agency, and the gift is likened to an intoxicating drunkenness. Next comes an accusation of betrayal. It is answered with a declaration of fearlessness, though a warning indicates that the fear belongs somewhere else entirely. Immense strength, speed, and the ability to fly all define the character, along with the power to banish others into an ever-expanding void that originated from within him. Facing something too powerful to exist within an ordinary world becomes a metaphor for hubris and for the despair tied to mental health. A line echoes that idea by saying emptiness can't be outrun. Going into the void means entering a realm of shame where life's worst moments and the feeling of causing them replay without end. It once remained hidden inside Bob, and now the void turns that experience outward onto everyone else. Screaming erupts, as does a confession referencing past drug use. For realism, the fight sequence relied on literal four-walled sets meant to be physically broken through as the action moved from room to room. Every beat was built around impact with a wall, table, or mirror, and performed in real time alongside stunt performers. Sprinting across a set and crashing through a breakaway wall in a single take feels almost superhuman, and there is pride in completing the sequence authentically in one continuous motion. A countdown initiates filming, and the crew breaks into cheers. Its complexity is acknowledged as unusually high because the sequence follows a singular creative vision, complete with camera tilts and pushes that drive toward a door exit. Long collaboration supports it, guided by consistent visual references that shape the actors' movements from one void space room to another. Essential to the sequence was coordination among special effects, stunts, and visual effects teams, all working to manage transitions and movable set pieces within tight filming spaces. An attic set included a connecting hole so that a bathroom set and a training room set could align, making a practical mirror reflection effect and a single panning shot linking the spaces possible. Then comes the image of a city disappearing into an interconnected maze of shame-filled rooms, along with a question asking whether anything similarly strange has ever been witnessed before. Working in the cramped attic becomes difficult once multiple actors and flying objects are involved, which is why the stunt performers used breakaway furniture while the cast used softer versions. When someone asks who is responsible for the chaos, the reply is an uncertain admission that blame may lie with the speaker. Reacting to genuine practical effects differs completely from pretending they are there. Being struck by a chair or having a curtain wrap around the neck changes the performance in a way simulation can't. Reading the sequence on the page and witnessing it performed are very different experiences. In seconds, the viewer sees a curtain cut, a shelf slammed down, a brick struck, and a pillow torn apart, even though filming those moments took hours. The take is called to an end, and crew laughter mixes with praise for a job well done. Asked about the character's deepest shame, the answer points to the humiliation tied to volunteering for the original experiment while believing genuine heroism was possible. Every attempt at heroism ends in disaster, which makes the laboratory feel like perhaps the final shame-filled space left to confront. A dismissive voice insists on total irrelevance to anyone, and a pain denial answers back. What finally allows acceptance is protection, affection, and trust offered by an ally, teaching that overcoming the void requires a literal internal confrontation with the self. A brief exchange claims greater strength and is met by a challenge to prove it. Technically, the scene is demanding because two opposing versions of the same character must be played within a single moment, requiring every shot to be filmed twice. The physical and emotional intensity brought to the scene earns strong praise. Rather than ending in combat, the ultimate confrontation with an entity threatening to erase the universe resolves through a collective embrace. Long-standing admiration for that allied team is framed as a wish to belong among them. Their eventual rescue becomes one of the first moments of genuine acceptance, of being seen, loved, and embraced despite past struggles. Praise for performing well is met with gratitude, followed by confusion over what exactly was being praised. The closing reflection questions whether pursuing the heroic identity is even wise when a darker counterpart will inevitably emerge. Perhaps the deeper lesson is simply learning to accept an ordinary self.